Today I wanted to show you our Credit Approval Transfer Service, or CATS, from the University of Cincinnati and the Carl H. Linder College of Business. This was the result of our USAC Curriculum Integration Grant. The problem that we were trying to solve was an overly complicated course equation system for students. So if a student wanted to study abroad, they were charged with identifying classes at the abroad institution that would count for University of Cincinnati, specifically College of Business equivalents. In order to do that, students would have to look at the USAC website, see what classes were being offered, and then from there fill out a paper form, have their advisor maybe look at it, then go to the faculty member in charge of that academic department, have them sign it. Usually they would drop off the form. It would eventually make its way back to our undergraduate advising office, and then from there it would be approved, get set in a binder, and it was on the student to come back and check to see if it was approved or not. So what we decided to do was create a system that could handle new requests from students, so it routes a request for a course to be approved to the faculty member, to the undergraduate office, and then notifies the student all electronically, no paper form anymore. And then the second thing that we wanted to accomplish was to create a course repository. Something that we noticed is that faculty members would maybe approve the same course at the same study abroad program 5 or so times in a semester. So this is eliminating that redundancy, and once it's approved, our faculty have agreed to have it stay as an active approved course for up to 5 years. So this system houses all of that, and I'm excited to show you the finished project and then talk a little bit about challenges and where it could go next. So the first thing I wanted to show is our predictive search. So if students wanted to go to Verona, and they honestly don't know what classes are offered, they just know, I want to go to this program, they could search, and it's going to pull up anything that's related to Verona. If we click the search, so it shows us all of the offerings that have previously been approved. So you could see 5 months ago, 7 months ago, we imported previous 3 years worth of courses that we had saved. We know there's more, but we got at least 3 years in, so there's a good foundation to start with. So if I look at this fashion marketing and merchandising in Verona, I see the description, I see what the course has been approved for, so I know it's a marketing major or minor elective, and I know it's worth 3 credit hours. We've had a lot of issues where faculty might have assigned different credit hours for courses, so this streamlines it, makes it consistent, and lets the student know from the very start what they could possibly earn with this. You'll also see that it has a secondary approval, so it's been approved as one of our free electives, or they could count it just as part of their study abroad requirement. So that's what you'll see from this view. I am going to go home because we do have another way to search as well. So if I just look at this abroad approved course list, I could search and get a bigger picture by country. So if I say, okay, I know I just want to go to Ireland, and we'll give it a second because there's a lot of data there. I could filter down and say I want to go to Ireland, but I know I just need some of my business core classes covered. So what can I take? So here it's going to show me anything that's been flagged in our back-end categories as a business core class. I could further slim this down, so I'm going to cheat because I know operations management is one of our core classes, but let's say I need to get my OM course taken care of. I'm not sure exactly what that is, so I could search down here and go to OM for our discipline category, and then it's going to show me that course. So you can filter down a couple of different ways. We did this to keep kind of design principles in place and have students be able to approach this database in a way that makes sense for them in multiple different ways. Something else that I really like, this was a bonus feature that we got from our developer, but you can favorite this course. So if I'm just building a list of things I might want to take, I could favorite it. Okay, the last little bit I wanted to show you was to request a new course. So like I said, one of our large issues with the paper form is that we couldn't track, and it wasn't very streamlined. Papers would get lost, students would have 3 of the 5 courses approved and couldn't find the other 2. So this kind of alleviates all of those pains. So this language is very standard from what is on our form. We are also collecting syllabi, which is something we didn't do previously. We're attaching them to the listings so that when students look at a course, they're also able to pull up the most relevant syllabi. So what we have here, so students want to substitute the following international course. Sometimes we have courses that can be count for multiples, like I showed you. So we want them to try and build on our database first before inputting new information. So in this example, maybe I want to take Applied Calculus 1 at Sichuan Normal, and I want that to count as a free elective instead of the math requirement. I wouldn't do that. This is just an example. So it would populate that course information, and then I would be able to add an additional tag to it, essentially. So let's say it's a completely new international course. Maybe the university hadn't been, we haven't sent students there, so they could also fill in this information manually. And then what we do once we get it on the back end is we create a new listing for it so that we could tie future courses, future requests to that new university or that new course. So there is a manual element from the staff side of things. The students never see it, just to make sure that we are following our own guidelines and that we are maintaining this database appropriately. One of my favorite things is that once you submit a course request, I'm going to go ahead and leave here, it keeps it in this storage system. So on the back end, as an administrator, I know where everything is. But as a student, if I'm not sure what the status is of my course, I could always come back in here, and these are from testing, so they're all rejected. But I could go in and say, okay, this was my CATS listing. This was, a picture of the syllabus that I had thrown in there. It's at London Met. I can see in here what I put in, why it was rejected, and then if there's any notes, I can click these as well, and it tells me, okay, so Elaine, it looks like she's the department head for management. She rejected it. This is myself, so the first person always approves it to move it in our workflow, and then I could see Jen Wiswell rejected it, and her comment is rejected per department review. So we know that it wasn't a match and that the department head decided it wasn't a good fit. So students can always log in and see where it's at. So if it was just at the program, because we have 2 levels of checks. So if it was just here, they would see it's with that department head. Now that it's complete, we see that 2 people have reviewed it, and then they could resubmit or retailor depending on what the feedback was. The system also doesn't allow for duplicates. So if I have a course that was previously approved, it is always approved when I go to type it in that new request form. It's going to ping back and say, hey, this course was approved, please check it out. So it makes it really easy for students to see what they can do abroad with just a couple of clicks, and hopefully helps future students easily identify what they're looking for. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about challenges that we've had. I would say the first challenge maybe was cost. Initially, we did a lot of shopping around with our department and our college in order to secure additional funding for the system we wanted to create. We had previously used an Excel sheet to track some of this information. It wasn't available to students, so we knew we wanted to do something and do it right. So it took a little bit of non-advising or study abroad staff to really get the full scope of the problem and how many different people this project would positively affect in terms of time, brain capacity, paperwork, commitments, etc. So once we were able to pitch to our deans, they threw us to the IT group, which they're wonderful and we're great partners in this project, and we ended up using the student technology fee to supplement the cost of this project. Another challenge is kind of maintenance related, but who owns this database? So IT, so backing up a little bit, we worked with a third-party developer to create this app, leveraging our IT friends who had the industry knowledge to kind of understand what we needed. So this was an initial idea that a colleague and I had. We worked with IT. They helped us say, this is what we could do with it. And then we partnered with a developer to actually create it in our university intranet. So it's, I think an application is a technical term. So for this application, they created it based on what we said. They no longer, they finished the job, it's closed out. So we can't really go back and make a lot of technical changes. There's some things that we can alter, we could troubleshoot. And for, like, again, I said, we have a really great IT team. They can figure out where we have issues and make changes appropriately. But beyond that, who owns the maintenance of the system on the back end? So who owns following up with faculty if it's been a week and they didn't follow up to the email they received saying, hey, you have a course to approve? Who goes in and edits the initial listings to make sure that they're in line with what we're looking for and that it's going to be logical to the system? Does this fall with advising? Does it fall with international programs? It's, maybe requires a couple hours a week, but it's a commitment. You can't just forget about it. So we've had a couple issues trying to figure out where it lives. I myself, helped get this project off the ground. I have since transitioned out of the undergraduate advising office. So for a while it lived with me in career services, but now it's kind of with international programs. So having that defined or written into a job description, I think would help in the future ensure its longevity. It's a little bit past the point, but I would also say another challenge has been COVID. So students are really excited to study abroad. However, university is not supporting study abroad for fall semester where we're at, and it's still not decided fully for spring. So students are using the system a little bit to poke around and see, but faculty aren't necessarily prioritizing improving study abroad courses. So while this is supposed to be efficient for students as well as faculty staff, the faculty side of things is kind of slowing down because there are other concerns. We talk a lot about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and study abroad is not one on the faculty schema of what needs to get done this week for my courses, for my students. So we're struggling a little bit there, and the system's still active. It's not shut down. We got a brand new system rolled out in January, and then we had COVID. So that's been a challenge for sure. Finally, I would just say just general adoption hasn't been a challenge necessarily, but something we're it's a culture shift for sure. So with most faculty, they agreed that it was a problem, and they really detested getting those forms and kind of shopping them around from office to office or to get them to the right place. So the idea of this has been really well received. However, similar to challenges with COVID, the system sends them an email. It's like a 2-click, do I approve this course, after they review the information. So it's pretty easy. But if you aren't the best at checking emails, or if you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to that later. We've had a couple times where things have sat for about a month because it's just not a priority for faculty. And there are a few departments that were really struggling to get in terms of just the adoption of the new technology. So that's a constant, not battle, just something that we're working towards. But overall, I think it's been really well. I'm personally very proud of this project, and I think it represents our college very well. No one else at the University of Cincinnati has anything like this. Again, it's just for College of Business students, but we are very excited, and it has been well used when students have been able to study abroad. So thank you very much to the USAC Curriculum Integration Grant Committee for allowing this to happen, and I hope you enjoyed our project.